I'm Kiva, this is Jake, and this is our tiny house, the tiny nest. A few years ago, we had never heard of tiny houses, but stumbled upon them online and felt like they really aligned with the lifestyle that we were gravitating towards. We decided to design and build our house, doing everything ourselves from scratch, and we thought it would be cool to document and share our experiences online on YouTube. So we did that, and the videos started getting views, so we started focusing more attention to our videos, and that kind of snowballed into an entire building series and accompanying website with building resources. We also went to Portland and went to both tiny house jamborees in Colorado, where we met lots of other tiny house people and became more involved in the tiny house community.
Our 20s consisted of a mix of university, college, and various jobs, sort of dabbling in a lot of different things, but never really lining up with a clear career path that would send us on that classical trajectory to success. We never really had a lot of money. We got really used to living off a moderate income, and of course we were just renting throughout this time, having never built up to the point where we wanted to put a down payment and get a mortgage for our own house. Early on we were often living with roommates, and then in more recent years just like a one-bedroom apartment, just the two of us. We live in British Columbia, Canada, and I don't know how much the rest of the world is aware of what's going on in Vancouver, one of the major cities here, but the housing market has just gotten out of control. It's become something of a joke how expensive it is, to the point where it's completely impractical for most average people to buy for the purpose of living. It's almost like an investor's playground, and the trend of rising housing prices is trickling over into other areas. We lived pretty much all of our 20s in Victoria, the capital, which is a much smaller city, but there are quite a bit of wealthy people there, and there's definitely the fuel to support a rising housing market. And again, with these trends that are nearby, things have just been inflating. So we had never, having had such a moderate income, considered that it would be possible for us to buy in Victoria. And so by our late 20s, after a full decade of renting, and it was becoming more and more on our minds, like what's next and how long can we just coast on this path that we're on, by chance we came across this alternative approach to owning a home that was much more affordable and flexible.
Our first exposure to tiny houses was through watching a documentary that covered all sorts of different alternative dwellings. And after watching that, we were just really inspired, and we started researching different housing options and also different lifestyles and living more minimally. From there, Jake started to tinker around with a 3D modeling program, and we started throwing around different design ideas and looking at where we were living and thinking about what we could do without and space that we didn't use. That's sort of when it became something that, oh, we should do this, became, we are doing this. So from there, we needed a plan to be able to get from where we were to actually building this. The first thing that we had to talk about was our budget and how we were going to pay for it.
When it came to money, we knew we would need to save up quite a bit if we wanted to quit our jobs and build full-time. We would need a lump sum that would cover all the materials and enough to spare to live off of. And it just so happened that right around that time, a job came up. Like, I had been working as an electrician, and a job came up that was a finite amount of time. It was out of town, and there was like living allowance, and it was a higher wage than I had been getting before, basically such that I was able to save up a whole bunch of money in a big chunk in a pretty short amount of time. So I went ahead and took that job. We saved up 20-ish thousand Canadian dollars, and so that worked out really well to cover the costs.
We'd been bouncing this idea around off of friends and family for a while, and we kind of lucked out because my parents owned this acreage that they had been renting out and kind of had been thinking about moving back to. And so with our tiny house plan, we were able to work out a plan with my family, basically share the land where Jake and I would live in the tiny house and my parents would eventually move into the main house on the property.
Yeah, we moved here first so that we could get a head start on building, and then the plan was that they would kind of follow and we would move into the tiny house and they would move into the main house.
Now that we had the money and a place to build, we wanted to actually set foot in a tiny house. So
because we had never before been inside.
Yeah.
So we didn't know what it would actually feel like. We just could only imagine at that point.
So we took a trip down to Portland and stayed in the tiny house hotel. We stayed in the one called the Rosebud, and I think that's on a 16-foot trailer.
Yeah.
So after staying the night in there, we felt like we could definitely live in one, especially because we had planned on building on 20-foot. With that last step out of the way, we both quit our jobs and moved out to my parents' property.
Not risky at all, right?
Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you like what we're doing here, and turn on email notifications so you never miss a video. You can also find extra resources in the description below.
We spend countless hours making these videos for YouTube, so if you appreciate our work, take 3 minutes to watch the video in the top left tile to learn some ways that you can support us for free.
We'd really appreciate it.